All right, thanks everyone. We're going to call that meeting to order. So thanks for attending. This is the last BPAC meeting of the year. What's that? No tears. Let's see here. So let's start with, so yeah, remember to sign in. For members, if you haven't yet, so let's go on your right now. So, and since that's what we're doing, attendance now, and then let's do just quick introductions of members that are in the person today. So David Sutton at large. President Moser, University of South Florida.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Mark Pirzada, representing BART. As we work along citizen at large.
Thank you. Yeah. David Ellsworth, citizen at large.
John Marsh, City of Tampa, Florida.
Sally Johnson, citizen at large.
Chris Felleroff, representing Hillsborough County Community and Infrastructure Planning.
Lucas Talala, representing Environmental Protection Commission of Hillsborough County.
Jorge Webb, citizen at large.
Todd Dulles, citizen at large.
Rita Besser, representing Betty Jerry's Ice Cream.
We're still
Okay.
waiting on that.
Next we will move to, okay, signage is going around. And then next move to public comment. So is there anyone here? Anyone online? Okay.
Excuse
So
me,
with that,
Chair.
yes.
Chair, for the record, you do have an in-person quorum, so business can be conducted.
Thank you. Let's see here. Okay, so next we'll move to approval of minutes. So minutes were distributed. Did anyone have any corrections? All right, if not, can I ask for a motion to approve them? Okay, thanks. And a second.
Second.
Okay. And okay, so with no corrections, all those approving the minutes, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, so minutes are approved unanimously. Next, we'll go to members' interest and future topic requests. So if you have any.
So we're getting bench on the flyer in case anyone wants to join us on Friday morning for the walkthrough that's on Paris Mayor. 8 a.m. at the utility Graham Park. It's about a 1 mile walk. They stop at all these historical houses and talk about the history of Elm Terrace and these houses. So it's pretty easy going.
That's this Friday.
This Friday morning.
I guess in the same vein, I don't know if this is self-promotion, but I'm hosting a bike ride Thanksgiving morning. Everybody's off, so you've heard it here already. We go from Spatty's Coffee in Seminole Heights to Supernatural, which I hope everybody knows by now, downtown. Free coffee, free food. The hub is also providing free drinks. I'm not responsible for anything that you do the rest of your day, but we meet at 8:30 in the morning. It's a lot of fun. Come hang out. You're not doing it. I know you're not doing it. So
That's starting at Spanish.
we meet at Spatty's probably at 8 a.m. Yeah. That's it. That's all, but it's fun. But not
That's
that
allowed if it's by bike and pedestrian.
Yeah, we're ride bikes, have a good time.
Being new to the committee, is there links to certain tools that we can use to visualize either the sidewalks, the trails or stuff within the county? I just haven't seen anything like that.
There are. So you should be getting a welcome email that might not come until after the board's approved your membership. So I'll give it.
Yeah, December.
So that's a place to start. It won't have what you asked for, but it will have Ben's and my contact info. So stuff like that, maybe, for this, we have several new members. So yeah, I sat on this committee for a year before everything figured out what's going on at all. So I had all the same kind of questions. So yeah, do better than me, and thank you for asking this now. But yeah, just follow up with us via email. We can point you to. There are some links that the city maintains, and there's actually some ongoing work in that area. I expect the next, maybe in January, sometime early next year, we'll have some other discussions about improving the network mapping and how we can share that with providers of routing apps and things like that.
Thank you.
But yeah, it goes for any questions about how we run meetings. There's a link to the bylaws. I encourage you to read them. This section, the BPAC is like 2 paragraphs, so it's not a big document. So, all right, thanks. Yeah, Chris, sorry.
On December 10th, there will be a meeting of the Hillsborough Greenways Committee, which is a county-run committee, citizens committee, organized county government that helps with the implementation of the Greenways Master Plan, and they meet quarterly. Sally Thompson is the chair, and I'm the staff coordinator, and at 5:30 on Wednesday, December 10th. Should have an interesting agenda, looking at prioritization for the year on the greenways, and other things. But everybody's welcome if you're interested.
Thanks.
I'm on the board of On Bikes, a charity that serves disadvantaged kids by providing bikes for free, building and providing bikes. And on Saturday, December 6th, that morning, we've got in Tampa the Winter Wonder Ride. So if you go to onbikes.org, you can buy tickets. And as you may know, years past, it's been in the evening. This year, it's in the morning, and we're going to shut off the streets in Tampa and have a bike ride, including down Bayshore Boulevard. So that's Saturday morning, December 6th.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Will these all be in the minutes?
So, yeah, but the minutes won't come out until January,
Oh,
because we're gonna skip a December meeting, so. But yeah, so again, if there's any of these things you missed, or, just reach out to us, we can help get you in touch with them. Well, right, right? Any other, yeah,
As a future topic, I'd love to maybe explore spitball ideas for the phosphate berry, which is coming back. Seems like mid next year, in terms of making maybe a more robust advertisement push, Tampa side for options once you get off the ferry, where can you pick up a bike, where can you get a ride share? I know the ride bike presentation is happening today, and I can be and I could, talk about it in regards to getting from the ferry to the ride line station once that's in place.
Yeah.
As a future topic,
it's a good idea. Just so you know how it kind of works is Ben and I sit down once a month, usually a couple of weeks before this meeting. And we're kind of looking at, what content we have. Some of it comes from PPO staff, where they just go around and have to brief different projects all the news. But we also look for, filling slots in lighter meetings with topics like that. So that's kind of how it is. So I like that idea. Well, so Ben, I will apply that to our list. And also when people did, if you have people that that would be appropriate speakers, otherwise we can reach out to these agencies. But that's all. Okay. Yep. Anything else?
We might have somebody waiting to join the call. I think Stephen Ayers is waiting. Just in case.
Okay. Same. I think that has to be accepted like a bit. Okay, I'll keep going. Any more representative interest to future topics? Okay, great. So let's move into action items. So actually, it looks like Ben is first. So it's going to talk about 2026 meeting calendar. I don't know, has the approval of bi-monthly meetings, has that already been approved by the board, or is this a proposed meeting schedule?
This is a proposed meeting schedule, and I'll get it up in a moment. I just need to. Okay. Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. Okay, sorry about the holdup. This is just a proposed calendar that is going for consideration to the board in December this year. And there are obviously columns for every committee, but yours is right here. And so we're proposing a new bi-monthly meeting schedule beginning in January, the first meeting. A workshop in July, just as we've always done, and September and November.
So it still looks like still the fourth Wednesday, except for January. We'll do it up there.
Yeah, the 28th, is that?
In other words, the same as this year, but doing every.
Yep.
And same time. Just continue.
Yes, 5:30.
5:30. So
You said it was.
Oh, I meant to say November. I don't know
Oh,
what
okay.
I said. Yeah, November because of the holiday. We
Yeah,
did
yeah.
receive that. Sorry, yes, January is.
28, so what?
All right, are you looking for feedback?
Yes,
Yeah,
thoughts,
just-
comments, observations.
Any feedback? I'm definitely working.
What's the reason for the bi-monthly versus monthly?
I think just the idea of having more be prepared, just efficient agendas. We don't want to waste anyone's time. Dave and I are still going to be coordinating in between those meetings. Make sure we have actionable items.
We talked about it, what, a couple months ago, what, everybody seemed to feel.
Yeah, this was a recommendation from TPO staff. And I think some other committees are going to as well. The idea is, yeah, that we have meetings that have more actions, and historically, we've had meetings with more status reports. We've also, historically had attendance problems, so it was one of the things, well, maybe if we have more, meetings with meaningful content, fewer meetings with meaningful content, that would improve. Those are kind of the things that we.
Could this possibly hold up projects having it bi-weekly versus bi-monthly?
Yeah, I mean, this is some of the stuff we discussed before. So the challenge is if there's something that the board is voting on, they want maybe our opinion on. But because of the timing of when this, came to be, and the timing of various committee meetings, it might not happen. So the bylaws do allow us to have at a meeting, right? So we could schedule an April meeting if we wanted to. We could also send out information to people at any time. If we were just looking for feedback on a project, we wanted to make them. So.
And are the meetings gonna be longer than?
I don't think so. I think that has not been, I've not heard that discussed.
Yeah, I haven't heard it either, but I think the team aims the same.
I wouldn't personally be in favor of a longer meeting.
They have less chance to get in early.
Yeah. I'd say the meetings, less meetings will get out early, but I wouldn't propose going longer. I think especially with evening, obligations and I don't think we need to, honestly, some months, Ben and I are filling it with status reports that may or may not be that interesting, right? Like some of them are, a transit report, which is that bike path? Yeah, I mean, it intersects some areas, but so there would just be less of that. And more, ideally, we're making recommendations that that's informing board decisions, right? We're an advisory committee. So status reports are nice for us, but they could also just be that information we can get emailed to us, or we're not voting on that. So that those was the thoughts. So, okay, any other discussion or comments? Thank you. I think, Ben, you're looking for a motion to approve this.
That's correct.
What's that?
Move approval. Are you saying you're looking for? What?
Yep. So Sally and John were second. All right. Any other discussion on this? Okay, so
I have a question.
Yes.
And that's a Ben question. Why do we keep getting notices all year round about joining? We get a notice for all 6 now, 12, and then each month we get one with additional notices
Notices that the meeting is coming up.
that future meetings are coming.
And I think, is that the RSVP screen? Through on that, we get shown.
But they come as separate emails. They come as separate emails.
You're talking about the meeting invitations.
But it's-
Yeah, my guess is that when like the recipient list changes, Outlook just spits it out to everybody. That's I see those two.
I was just curious.
I'm guessing something changes in the meeting and then even
But
if
then
we
it
are.
has all of them, I mean, what else? Okay, never mind.
Yeah, I think it's probably more of a 1920 session. But we should get less of those. We should get half.
That's true. Well, we get 6 instead of 12.
Okay, so we have a motion in a second, and so let's see, let's just quick vote, all those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the 26 meeting calendar is approved unanimously. And now let's move on to second action item, which is the Bright Line stationary study. So there.
Good evening, everyone. Sarah Caper. I'm with the Hillsborough TPO staff, and I have with me Stephanie McQueen, who's with HDR, the consulting firm that has been working with us on this project. Okay, so this evening we'll go through an overview of the study and our goals. We'll talk about the public survey that we did earlier this year, a little bit of our analysis and the work products that came out of that, and then our needs and connectivity plan that we drafted. So the goals of our study were to identify potential Brightline users, and Brightline is the high-speed rail that currently goes from Miami to Orlando, and there's been talks of expanding that to Tampa. Brightline is a private company. Our study was not about if Brightline should come and exactly where a station should be. It was about identifying potential people who might use the service, assessing the demand for multimodal connections to key destinations, looking at what kind of mobility and infrastructure improvements might be needed, and developing an early action plan. We know that it takes a really long time to plan and implement transportation projects. We are focusing on ones that will be good no matter what happens with Brightline. Some obviously are a little more tailored to a Brightline service coming, but a lot of them you'll see in the presentation would still be helpful and hopefully you see as valuable improvement no matter what. And if Brightline does come, we don't want the comment to be, well, you've had years to plan for it. How come this didn't happen? How come people can't get there on a bicycle or on foot? So it's trying to get ahead of what might be happening and still come up with some worthwhile projects. That said, we had to provide some kind of station area. Where are we going? So there is a black line on this map on Nuccio Parkway. That was kind of our starting point of where we think it might go. And then we have these buffered areas around that. So we're not picking a location, but we're saying what would be needed in a half mile around this area, within a mile around this area. And you'll see we actually also looked at further out because we know people might use the service coming from further out in the region or arriving here in Tampa and going somewhere else. So we have these different layers of our study that are centered around the greater downtown Tampa, Ybor City area. We kicked off this study in February of this year, and we spent the spring looking at what is happening, and you'll hear from Stephanie a little bit more about that. We know it's ever changing, but kind of at that time, what's around there, and also looking at some peer facilities and how they plan the areas around and access to their stations to see what we might be able to learn from them. We did a public survey in the springtime and had really positive responses on that helped provide input to our study. Then we did some user profiles to look at humanizing who might use the service and looking at actual transportation data that's out there today to say, okay, it's hard to talk about real people's experience. We're trying to make it look like, this is how someone who might use it might come to Tampa, where they're going, or someone from the Tampa Bay area might come to this area to go someplace. You'll see a little bit about that as well. And then we worked on this connectivity area plan and the need. And then we're before you, our second presentation. We had one earlier this morning. Sorry, Omar, you heard it already once today at Local Roadways. But you're our second stop, and then we'll be going to the Technical Advisory Committee, the Citizens Advisory Committee, and the TPO Board in December. As part of our effort, we did engage with different stakeholders and had a study team, and you could see them various organizations and entities listed here. There are a couple with asterisks, the airport and Brightline. These were consulting partners or coordinating partners, so they weren't part of our study team, but we did check in with them along the way and get some feedback from them and input that helped shape our study. One notable stakeholder I wanted to point out for you is the Friends of Tampa Union Station, who are really great partners in talking with us as well, recognizing that there is already a rail service, the Amtrak service that goes from Tampa to South Florida and also north, and so we wanted to engage with them as well as part of our study. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie to get a little bit more in the meat of it. We are going to focus somewhat on the bicycle and pedestrian pieces of it, but if you have any questions, we'll take that at the end. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Again, Stephanie McQueen, HDR. Happy to be before you guys today and give you a little taste of the study that we've completed over the last several months. As Sarah mentioned, we did the context report back in the spring, and I'm sure that it's completely outdated at this point, just given the volume of development that's going on out there with the gas works development. I think as we were talking about development potential and things were, literally getting constructed in front of us, we would take site photos and then we'd go back a month later and like, that building's done. But really it was helpful to understand what's the development pattern that's going on right now, what is anticipated, what are the planned infrastructure projects, so what are bike ped projects that are underway, like the green spine is probably nearing completion, and 6 months ago it was still under construction through this segment of Ybor City. We did also take into consideration the historic context. What are the kind of rules, regulations in terms of redevelopment? What are some of the considerations in terms of demographics, and understanding where people would likely want to get to and from, like the port, the convention center, Amalie Arena, other places in the downtown, as well as the larger Tampa Bay region. We also, as Sarah mentioned, did a peer facilities review. So we looked at the Miami Central Station, the Brightline Station, the Miami Central, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm Beach to understand what do they have at those stations. Do they have parking? Do they have, bike ped specific access, bicycle parking? We reviewed them to see what their facilities look like, to understand what are the key things that a Tampa station would need. And we learned, wayfinding and visibility is really important, as well as the connection between services. So if you have a transit service for Brightline connecting to a HART bus, is there a signage that says, the HART bus is right over here and the next bus is leaving in 10 minutes? Having those kind of seamless transitions was really important, as well as providing a safe, comfortable station where people felt welcome and wanted to use the service versus having to use the service. The other thing that really was shocking to us was how much response we got during this public survey that we pushed out around May. Got a lot of media coverage. You guys may have seen some of it. We got about 12,000 responses from people in Tampa Bay as well as around the state, because we really wanted to understand not only people who live in Tampa who want to go to Miami, want to go to Orlando, where do they want to go and how do they want to get to and from a station? What are the features they want? But also folks coming to Tampa Bay, what are they looking for in a station or station area once they arrive here and are ultimately trying to get to their final destinations? So we had a number of questions. One that I thought was really interesting was, how are people going to get to the station if they're leaving from Tampa? A lot of people said, they would drive and want to park their cars. But there were more than almost 50% of people said that they would consider more than one way of getting it. They weren't 100%, I'm only going to drive and park, they would consider multimodal options if they were easy, safe, accessible, and didn't, make it difficult for them to get to the station. On the reverse trip, folks arriving to Tampa were obviously much more likely to use ride hailing or a multimodal because they won't have a car when they get here. So 70% said that they would take more than one different choice. So they would be picked up, or they would take the streetcar, or they would walk, bike, whatever they need to do to get to their destination. It would obviously vary where they're going. The key sentiments that we heard was just massive enthusiasm for this. People were really excited, saying, build it now. Why is this not already happening? Like, I want this, I want this. But there were these kind of critical things that they wanted us to consider as part of our study and as part of future implementation of Brightline, is really focusing on integration with the other destinations of the airport, transit connections, the connectivity to the region, as well as considering the safety and lighting, all those things that would make you feel really comfortable within a station itself. They were really clear on wanting an alternative to I-4. That was, as you would expect, a really big theme that we heard. And boosting tourism, the economic growth was another big driver for this. And again, really just excitement is what we heard. And when we spoke to Brightline, they were very glad that we had conducted this survey. I think it was helpful for them to see that level of interest and excitement and specifics on what they're looking for in the station area. And of our responses, only about 1% to 2% were really against it for whatever reason. Just, don't like rail, don't like transit, don't like, not being in their own specific car. We're worried about the cost. But really, it was helpful to understand where people are wanting to go, how are they wanting to get there, and what does the future station need to be able to provide that connectivity to their final destination or where they're coming from in Tampa Bay. We used that information along with a data analytics process that we went through to understand how many people are currently making these trips. And we set it up into these multimodal zones to understand the number of trips that would come from really close to the station area. So people within a quarter mile that would potentially walk or bike or use micromobility, take ride hailing, take streetcar, to a mile away. They'd be, less likely to walk to a station, but might bike to the area that we're considering our 45-minute drive shed. So with no traffic, we think that there's roughly 2.3 million people that would be within a 45-minute drive of a Tampa station. So trying to understand what are the needs of the different demographics in these areas to understand the different modes and ways that they would get to and from a station. We also kind of understand of the destinations in Florida, of the existing planned and other future proposed Brightline stations in Florida, how many trips are going on right now? So roughly 28 million trips are going on right now in other modes, driving, what have you, between Tampa and the other 8 different planned and existing stations. So that indicates, there's a tremendous opportunity to shift people from driving or whatever other mode that they're taking to a Brightline service. And as part of our survey results and this data analysis process that we went through, we really saw there's a big pair between Tampa and Orlando. Obviously, changing the I-4 drive to rail was really exciting for some people, but there is the opportunity for people to go to South Florida as well, get down to Miami, get down to the Fort Lauderdale area. Finally, we kind of consolidated this into AI generated images of people. Like, who are the people that we're talking about? They're not hypothetical. They are, young professionals who live downtown, who want to just walk to the station and go visit, friends in South Florida. They're people coming from across the state to Tampa to hop on a cruise ship. They're real, actual people that we kind of set up what their issues, what their needs are, and what would the challenges be getting to and from the station, so that we can kind of think about the people first, not necessarily just a station and infrastructure, but really try to understand what are the things that people are asking for that are hypothetical at this point, but are real, in fact, people in the future. Finally, today we want to kind of talk a little bit more about what are our ideas and suggestions. So we identified the needs, what's needed within these planning areas that we set up within the station site itself. So how many parking spaces do you need? Do you need bicycle parking? Do you need bus drop-off spots? Those are some ideas. Within the quarter-mile area, where we're calling the station site, what bike lanes are needed? What sidewalk connections? What wayfinding is needed to connect the station to a streetcar line? Because likely those wouldn't be co-located. There would have to be some kind of pathway or walkway or something to connect them. And then what's needed within the greater area, so more than a quarter mile away from the station. So an example would be connecting the Marion Transit Center to a Brightline station. Those are roughly, half a mile to a mile away from each other. So our connectivity plan, we organize this by mode. So our first mode here is roadway and parking. So what would be needed within those 3 areas that I talked about? But specifically here on the map, we're showing what's needed within this quarter-mile buffer. So one of the suggestions is reconnecting the street network so that there's, easier walking and biking if the station is on the north end of our corridor, improving access around Union Station, along Nebraska Avenue. That was a big, safety concern that we've heard, and speeding, managing those things within this area are what we're hearing in terms of projects that are not underway. We also did look at projects that are programmed and planned. So the I-4 interchange with 275, the Adamo Drive Complete Street project. There's some projects going on Channelside Drive right now. So what else is needed? And these are some of the initial steps that we could recommend without knowing where the station is going to go. This is what makes this task a little bit tricky, is that we don't know where the station site is itself. Transit, we look. Don't know how I close that, but I will try.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Go. Oh, did it just okay. Okay, back to transit. Obviously, don't know where the station's gonna go, but we would want that connection to the streetcar. We would want to co-locate part bus lines at the station itself if possible, or is immediately adjacent to the station site. We would want to figure out the connection to Marion Transit Center, to the airport, to USF, like changing the existing transit network to accommodate this Brightline connection is really critical. On the bicycle avenue, our main focus of recommendations or solutions, ideas, is to build upon the work that's kind of going on right now. So the green spine cycle track that is progressively going north along UCO, and then we'll go up 15th Street, connecting the east-west trips to that. So right now there are facilities out there, there's bike lanes and things like that, but maybe in the future we could consider dedicated separated guideways, or not guideways, but separated bike cycle tracks, or more facilities that will help the east-west connection through this area, because you already have the developing green spine. Ensuring parking at the station and within the station area for bicycle parking. And really trying to improve the wayfinding so people on a bicycle can also access the station. Please interrupt me also if you have any questions, but I'll just keep moving through here. On the pedestrian side of things and shared use paths, we're looking again at improving the access over across Nusio. There's only a few traffic lights there now. There's a few that are proposed across Nusio as part of the Gasworks development. So that will be a big improvement, but there could also be some additional mid-block crossings to allow people to get across that road that's essentially a barrier for walking at the moment, but it could be a very pleasant walking environment if you can get across it. The other thing that we recommended here as an idea is improving bicycle safety at the other barriers that we see, which are the Selman. There's some opportunities to do a shared use path on, it's essentially coming up Meridian, going around Amtrak station. There's some opportunities, and we've heard there's conversations going in that direction of a path that would connect Union Station to the Gasworks development, as well as that Adamo Selman underpass. There's some opportunities there to improve the Selman Greenway as it goes underneath the crosstown, or not crosstown, the Selman Expressway. Finally, hard to map these, but wayfinding technology driven recommendations to implement to help people get around the neighborhood safely, provide lighting in a parking garage, providing the sensors so people don't circle and circle and circle trying to find a parking spot. Like there's a lot of ways to integrate and make the ride and transit experience more pleasant for people coming to the station. That's all we have. I'll turn it back over to Sarah for questions, but thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And our ask of you today is to recommend that the TPO board accept the Brightline Station Area Study. That's our recommended action. And you can see here the QR code, which has the link to the full document. There's too much to share in such a short time with you, so feel free to explore it. And we're happy to take any questions or comments that you have at this time.
I have a question. I'm Sally Thompson. I'm not sure if I missed you saying it or whatever, but where is the Union Station and where is the line for the bright line?
Sure. So Tampa Union Station is on the very southern end of the map.
Twigs in Nebraska.
Yeah, we don't know.
Lucio is
Yeah.
north of the station.
So the Tampa Union Station was like the southern end point of our study area. So it was in our study area. We don't know exactly where the Brightline Station is going to be. So if it is at Tampa Union Station or nearby, it is considered in this, but we also know that there's a likelihood it could be somewhere else. But that's something that we just won't know until Brightline announces where the station is going to be. But we have been looking at how this station would interact with Tampa Union Station, whether it's at the same place, whether it's really close by, or whether it's a little further away.
What was Todd and Gala, what was the main reasoning or scope of putting it along this corridor in this area? Was it the destination points that?
We heard from previous conversations that this was an extreme area of interest for Brightline, and that was actually published in some media outlets as well. So we felt like we were asked to do this study, and we felt like that was the most likely possible location. It definitely could be somewhere else that's outside of our control, but we think that a lot of the recommendations here hopefully will be good no matter where it is. But hopefully it's in this area.
Is the Brightline coming to this area?
Yeah, so Brightline, if you just do like a Google search from about a year or two ago, this was the area that was stated as where the Brightline station would be. And we had some conversations that confirmed that that was the most likely area where Brightline was going to be.
Well, originally, because we turned down like $4 million or whatever that we got for high-speed rail, supposedly Brightline would come in and they would do it.
Yeah, so
Yes.
one thing we talked about here was the Cross Bay Ferry and the connection to the Cross Bay Ferry. I didn't know if that was also considered there too.
Sure, we didn't actively consider that based on the information we had at the time, but the good thing is that this is a pretty early and high level study, and so it definitely could be once we look at where the Brightline station is. But I think the connections to the streetcar, the connections we proposed for the bicycle and pedestrian facilities would be able to connect to a ferry stop station and have the wayfinding and other elements of bicycle parking if you're going to take a bike, or the walking if you're getting off the streetcar.
How could it connect to the airport?
So we spoke with the airport and we talked with Hart. The solution that we heard come up most frequently is within the current transit service would be to take one of the existing Hart routes that goes to the airport and goes to Marion Transit Center and extend it to the Brightline station. That said, we know there are a lot of conversations happening about transit, but I think that's something we just keep a close eye on. We know that the people would want a fast ride with minimal stops and seamless connections. So we were focused on looking at that and providing a framework so that if there are conversations further about transit service, we can provide that background for what potential users would be looking for.
Isn't there allowance on Howard Franklin for high-speed rail or whatever, so when we hope that we connect either through I-4 or something like that.
But those are, yeah, they were dedicated lanes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For bus service.
And there is a West Shore Intermodal Center that the Florida Department of Transportation purchased the property for.
Does Brightline own their stations, or do they ask the local governments to provide
Right.
stuff?
Brightline generally is in the real estate business.
So the location was basically picked based off of engineering, being able to have that property and bringing the train into that location, correct?
The area that we picked is one where it is technically feasible to bring the train in, yes.
Yeah, it's much larger than you would actually need a study area for. I think it's roughly like 4,500 feet long is our study area. They would only need about 1,000 feet of that. So it could be anywhere within that like larger footprint that we've showed as our study area.
Right. One thing I did notice is that your stakeholders didn't include USF, though one of your targeted audience is the young professional, which would be part of USF, right?
We did not include USF. We primarily included entities that had facilities in or around the downtown area, but we definitely would be happy to engage with USF,
Hillsborough.
the medical facilities.
I don't know how close you are to everything being wrapped up, but in your bike ped connectivity, it might be worth also pointing out that the Selman Greenway is gonna be integrated into the Florida Gulf Coast Trail, which is a Sun Trail connection going all the way down to Naples. So that's right in this area, and it seems like, people doing long trail rides might want to take a train or vice versa. But so that's going into downtown on the Selman Greenway and heading out on, I guess, Adamo to 34th to bypass Canal and South Coast Greenways eventually, but that would integrate well with, regional resources that should be connected.
Thank you.
If you can drop a sentence in or something like that.
But one thing I'll add to it, I know I kind of mentioned it earlier, during the local release committee, which has done this as well. But our staff, we actually met with one of the planners who, she was with Miami-Dade trains at the time, that was forever, but we talked about, how it looks like working with Brightline as a company, as like, from the trans agency perspective. And I mean, pretty much bluntly, she did say, like, to your point, they are a private company and they are primarily interested on the real estate side. And at the end of the day, Brightline is gonna do what they want. And I think the good thing about having a plan like this in place is that it's like, the guideline or almost like an enforcement mechanism that the local municipalities can use, and the transit agency can use to make sure that, those connections do work, that people are able to, go safely from bus transit to Brightline or, biking, walking to Brightline. Because I think we, as far as the municipalities and the transit agency, can be proactive in these conversations with Brightline, because from what we've heard, from talking to the agency representative, was they're not going to be proactive on their end necessarily. So I think, plans like this, it's a good first step. And then I think the next step is making sure that, there is that sort of enforcement mechanism if plan Brightline does come. So
Sorry, Todd, again, going off of what he stated, so there's no state or federal funds being used for this this plan or for the station build itself?
We can't speak to the station itself because that's not in our purview. This planning document that we're doing, the station area study, was funded by TPO planning funds, which are federal funds. The TPO is funded through federal dollars that come through the state of Florida.
Union Station.
Let's see.
Aren't they doing a lot of renovations
They are.
right now?
Right? Any other feedback? So, yeah, so people that are relatively new, right, this is what TPO does, right? They study, this is nice that people are thinking about, even though this is years away and we don't know where it's gonna be. But there's other projects that are gonna happen before then, that would be nice to align with someone. That's the purpose of all this, is to align all these planning efforts so that when this does happen, we've thought about it and we've steered other projects that might support it, right? So we're not approving spending any money. We're saying, yeah, we were briefed on this study. It's going to go to TPO board. And so you'll see these studies that go around all the meetings. So it's pretty common. But yes, an opportunity for us to ask questions, but the study is what it is. It's going to go to the board. They're going to vote on it with or without our recommendation. But just so everyone understands the process. So, okay. So if there's no other feedback, yeah, they're asking for a motion. Did you?
No,
It's
the
nice
motion-
when it's written
Sure,
at the
it's
top,
to
right?
recommend the TPO board accept the Brightline Station Area Study.
So this will be a recommendation, BPAC, from the BPAC to TPO, to accept, this Brightline study. So this is their, right? So Sally, thank you. Second, okay, Jorge.
Thank you, Homer. I agree. We've really got to be ahead because we've lost out on a lot of money.
This is exciting. It's what it is. And then I hope everyone participated in the survey, and I'm sure there'll be another one. As we get closer, and like you said, that this part of the city is changing so much. But that's why it's important for us to. So nice work. Thank you for presenting today. So, okay, so we have a motion, a second. And so, yeah, quick show of hands. All those in favor of recommending the motion to recommend this to go forward, say aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, so thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Steph. And with that, we move into status report. So we have 4 tonight, and the first one is from Omar.
This it?
Mentioned the left and right arrow.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome, thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. Nice meeting you. My name is Omar Pirzada. I am Heart staff. I'm also the alternate BPAC representative for Heart when Dan Rodriguez is not here. And today I am here to present on the FY 2026-2035 Transit Development Plan Annual Progress Report. So for those who are wondering, what exactly a transit development plan is, a transit development plan, also known as a TDP, is a multi-year financial and operating plan that a transit agency uses. On top of that, it's also a requirement that every transit agency in the state completes a TDP. It's a requirement by FDOT in order to receive state funding. So TDP major updates are required every 5 years by FDOT at least. And our last TDP major update was completed in 2022. And we have done the annual progress reports in the years in between. And we will be doing our next TDP major update next year, kicking that off to be submitted in 2027. So be on the lookout for that. We're excited to kick that off.
Yeah,
Is there a link?
Yes.
Your presentation.
I think so.
It's not limited.
Yeah, I'm on it.
Okay, we'll find it. You're all good? All right. Okay.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you. And we can send any materials, to the BPAC after the fact as well. Yep. All right, so just to touch on again, what are the components of a TDP annual progress report? Just touch on a few. This is straight from Florida statute.
but it includes the transit agency's past year accomplishments compared to the original implementation program in the major update. We also go over any revisions to the implementation program for the coming year, a revised implementation program for the new 10th year of our fiscal plan, a revised financial plan, and a revised list of any projects or services needed to meet the goals and objectives of the transit agency. So we really try to hammer this down in our transit development plan major update, but obviously the point of the annual progress reports is to see if there's any updates, if there's any changing priorities by the agency that is reflected, so that when we submit to FDOT, they are aware of, what our priorities and our goals are. In addition, in 2024, FDOT made some modifications to the TDP rule. So overall, pretty minor. I just wanted to touch on two key ones. The first one, changing the submittal deadline from September 1st to March 1st, so pushing it back a little bit. It also requires enhanced collaboration with the MPOs and TPOs to ensure that there's more comprehensive regional transit planning. To that point, it's a big reason, why HART is here today to present on the TDP to the BPAC, just to make sure that all the TPO committees are aware and, to see if there's any feedback or any ways that we can, better connect or, serve the TPO and to make sure that everyone's working together on it. So next, I want to go over some accomplishments from HART that we detailed in our Transit Development Plan Major Update. I'm sorry, this popped up. There we go. So the first one being the Fare-Free Route 1 pilot, which, I hope some of you in this room are aware of. We've been having a fare-free pilot for the Route 1. It's going through January 4th, 2026. For context, Route 1 is our busiest route in the HART system. It's also the future BRT corridor as well, which is a TPO top transit priority as well. And since the pilot has been a lot of success, we've seen over 5,000 daily weekday riders. So that means, we're seeing about 5,000 people each weekday using the bus on average, and 2,500 on weekends, which has been awesome. It's also led to better service and faster speeds for our riders. And on top of that, we're excited to say that the frequency improvements are going to continue after the fare-free pilot ends on January 4th, 2026. In the PowerPoint, it says pending City of Tampa approval, but thankfully that approval is now. So, that will be going forward next year.
And I think the frequency is even going to get better. It's going to be extended to long.
It's going to be extended into correct. It's going to be extended to the evenings, and we're going to extend the frequency improvements to the weekends, which will be a big help. Next, I want to touch quickly on another big project that HART's been undergoing the past year, and that being our comprehensive operational analysis. So what a comprehensive operational analysis is a review of the transit system and looks at proposing short-term improvements. Again, the transit development plan is more of the long-term view, and a COA is more of a short-term view to see, what improvements we can make. So these are conducted about every 5 to 7 years. We did public outreach last month, September to October. And we presented this to the TPO board and committees as well in October 2025. Specifically the Livable Roadways Committee, the TAC and the CAC. I don't believe the COA was presented to the BPAC. However, we can, get any materials to you if you guys are curious on the outreach, and when the final report becomes available, we can make that available to you as well. Any of the proposed service changes that we're going to be recommending as part of the COA, it's going to go to the HART board in January 2026, and any of those changes will go into effect in June of 2026. Next, I want to touch on some of the outreach efforts that our HART team has been a part of this past year. So, we've been out in the community, connecting with our riders and, Hillsborough County residents, doing events such as, our Black History tours, the summer youth presentations, the Great American Teach-In, back to school events, hurricane preparedness, outreach as it relates to our Flamingo Fair program, as well as the 2026 proposed service changes that I mentioned on the previous slide. So, we're doing a lot of work just to, let people in the community know that HART's, here to serve them, and see, what we can do for them and, how we can, better serve them ultimately. And then finally, I wanted to touch on another exciting project, the heavy maintenance facility phase 1. So our heavy maintenance facility is located in East Tampa. That is where, all the buses are located. That's where they all pull out from, that main garage. And it's been needing some, work and repairs for some time, and we're actually making some good progress on making those repairs. So phase 1 is fully funded. It's a $29 million project, and it's going to provide the following enhancements, being a new fleet facility service, security, fencing, and lighting improvements, stormwater improvements, which are greatly needed, which we realized after last hurricane season that we definitely needed those, and support for a future fleet of 250 CNG buses, which we're really excited for. Phase 2 is the other part of it. That's going to require additional funding that we are, still actively working on attaining. Next, I want to touch on the transit needs that were identified as part of this TDP. So going over, kind of what's funded right now. The first box shows, our existing service, maintaining that for the fiscal year period of 2026 to 2035 and showing that cost right there. We also want to highlight again those Route 1 frequency improvements that, we're going to be seeing on weekdays and weekends as well once the fare-free pilot ends on January 4th, 2026. Again, the funding source is from the city of Tampa, so thank you to city staff and Councilmember Hurtak for championing that. As far as funded capital needs, also want to touch on these. Big ones being, again, the heavy maintenance facility that I mentioned on the previous slide, the replacement of our 40-foot diesel buses, transitioning those to CNG, the replacement of our paratransit and flex vans, phase 2 of the streetcar rebuild, and also improvements to our CAD AVL ITS system and radio, improving communications across the HART system, improving our real-time capabilities so that, riders are able to better track the bus, see where it is to plan their ride. And then here, I have this fun slide or sad slide, depending on how you see it, because this shows our unfunded needs. So we've identified on the top there our kind of top 4 ridership routes that we've identified needing 15-minute frequency. So again, thankfully for the Route 1, as part of that City of Tampa pilot and continued funding, we're going to actually be seeing that 15-minute headways frequency on the Route 1. But we've also identified the Route 6, 34, and 400, some of our other higher ridership routes as candidates for needing that service. We also identify routes that, we'd like to enhance to 20-minute service and 30-minute service if funding were to become available. I also wanted to point out that with the Transit Development Plan major update that we are going to be commencing on next year, and, we hope to engage the TPO and all the committees, we're going to try to kind of narrow down and kind of tailor this list a bit more to better prioritize our short-term needs and our long-term needs as well. Previously, as part of the previous presentation on Brightline, just talk about, rail connections and connections to the airport, things like that. So trying to identify that and see, what the community needs are so that, when we complete this report and, submit our TDP major update to FDOT, that we have, a pretty good prioritized list of what our needs are. So that, they understand where we're coming from, they understand what the needs are, and they can better help us. So as far as the next steps for the TDP APR, we're going to be submitting this TDP annual progress report to FDOT by March 1st, 2026. Actually, fun fact, I think we already did submit it, so check that one off. We're going to continue coordination with the Hillsborough TPO, FDOT, and our other agency partners as well. And as I keep mentioning too, we're excited to be kicking off our TDP major update for fiscal year 27, 2036 next year. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. If you guys have any questions, happy to answer them.
Thanks so much. Any questions? I have one. Do you study the bike usage on the racks? Like
we do, yeah. So we do what's called a bike, it's called our lift report. So, like on the bus, there's the little pull down thing where you put the bikes, and we get that data. We report it to our board every month. We also have automatic passenger counter data that shows, like the specific stops where there's high usage of bikes, and wheelchairs as well. So we do record that, and we report it to the board monthly.
Yeah, I was curious, because there's, at least on Route 1, there's 2 bike racks. And
Yeah.
There's often a bike on there, and I often wonder, if I bring my bike and there's no room, what do I do? So-
Yeah, and personally, I've run into that as someone that bikes and likes to take the bus. It is pretty frustrating when you take your bike to the bus stop and you see that the bike rack's already full. It's kind of a bummer. Thankfully, when you have higher frequency routes, it becomes a little bit less of an issue, but it becomes a real pain on the 60-minute routes. You have someone that, they plan their whole day for that bus. They have their bike, if it's already full, it's tough. It's tough. So we do try to track that. Unfortunately, all the buses, and this has been like my thing as well. I've always been like, why can the buses only handle 2? That's just how buses are built. I know on the Sunrunner and Pinellas County and St. Petersburg, they have the bike racks inside the bus, which is cool. But that's a different service, different type of bus. But yeah, we do track that information. Yeah.
On the same line, bus stops,
Mhm.
you track the amenities at the bus stops, right? If they have bike racks or if they don't have bike racks.
We do, yeah. And actually, fun fact on that, we are actually completing a full bus stop inventory right now to, we had staff going to every single bus stop and tracking those amenities. So we're building a database right now that should hopefully be finished by hopefully next week. And we're going to publish that.
Are there qualifications for that bus route to get a bus or a bike rack versus one sit down?
Yeah, we look at a few factors. Sometimes it's based on needs. We look at ridership at the stops. I know, like for the Route 1, for example, we try to prioritize because we know that there's like a lot of bike usage as well. We look at also, things like, for disadvantaged communities and, routes that serve more disenfranchised areas that might not have cars. We try to, put that in as a factor as well. So there's a couple things we look at. I'll say that we, as part of new bus stops that are built, we tried to make it so that there's a bike rack, and actually as part of like code requirements for the city and the county, depending on how big, like let's say like a development is in the county or the city, sometimes they'll be required to build a bus stop and it will include amenities such as a bike rack. So we try to make sure that that's, we're keeping them accountable for that.
Any kind of land development code or anything like that concerning requiring?
Yeah, so in the land development code, so yeah, again, if it's a development that's of a certain size, it says, a hard bus stop shall be, if it's along the current route, it should have a shelter, a trash can, bench, bike rack. So we try to require that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
What is the tire size on bike? Because sometimes my bike, when I would take it on the bus,
Yeah.
let me put it on there, but my
Oh,
tire
really?
is too big for the
Hmm.
bike rack. Is there any kind of, to let people know that they have to, tire size is a factor in it?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I don't have a good answer for you right now. Because I know they're all the bike racks on the buses are uniform with the tire size. So I think if something has a bigger tire size, then I understand it can't fit. I could look into that a bit more and figure out, like if there's anything that could be done to accommodate, or maybe just, maybe like some educational like information that we put out. But that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up.
That's happened to me a couple times. But
Oh, really? Is it like on specific buses or?
It's like the Jolly Trolley looking bus.
Oh, like in Pinellas or?
But also there was one out
Okay.
there in, Tampa.
Yeah, okay,
I don't remember the bus line, but I remember 6.
okay.
So the tire, it's not a big tire, it's not like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
regular
yeah.
bike, but they were not comfortable with my bike being on there.
Yeah,
It was
That's a good point.
to certain bus drivers.
that's interesting. Yeah, I can look into that a bit more, and Todd, to your point, and thanks for bringing it up, just like the bike racks. at our bus stops. And that's another reason why we try to put bike racks at bus stops when possible is, for people, if it's, their home stop or their work stop, they can park the bike there and then get on the bus. So it just provides that option as well for people that are comfortable leaving the bike. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
And, okay, next is TPA prioritization.
Good evening, BPAC. I'm Elizabeth Watkins, CPO staff, and I'm here tonight to talk to you about a process rather than a project. So it's a little bit of different mindset. But I'm here because we are doing an evaluation of how the TPO prioritizes projects. And one of the reasons I'm here is when I presented to you the list of priority projects 5 months ago, you all had some feedback. Why do you do it this way? Why are you putting technology projects first? And then why are all the fixed guide transit projects at the back? And I didn't just hear that from you. I heard that from some of the other committees. So that really got me thinking, like, okay, let's take a pause and think about why we're prioritizing projects in the way that we're doing it. So we're still kind of in the early phases of this initiative to kind of do a pause and a self-evaluation of them. To date, we've done interviews with our local government partners in HART, since they are the recipients of these funds. Their projects get on this list and get advanced through this process. We've also reached out to a few peer MPOs who we think set really great models for their project prioritization process. And now I'm here today to seek your policy direction. This is going to be kind of a fast and furious process because we evaluate projects every year. So we only have we have a short window to do this self-reflection and then get direction from the board. So project prioritization can get really, really weedy, but there are 3 things I want you to keep in mind as we go through this. And the first fact is the TPO has discretion over a pot of federal funds. It's about $25 million per year, which is a decent size, but to give you scale, about $1 billion is spent annually in transportation in Hillsborough County. So it really is a small portion, but still something we can do meaningful projects with. We have a long-standing business rule that all the projects that get on our priority list must come from local governments or transportation operator like HART or THEA. And that's mainly because they're the ones going to be constructing it and then maintaining it. The fact of the matter is many of the projects they do identify come from plans and programs that we've heard input on and had advocacy for. But when it comes to actually getting on this list, it has to come from the asset owner. And then finally, federal funds often have more requirements to deliver a project and then result in higher project costs. So one thing I've heard over and over is, if you're going to build a mile of sidewalk with federal funds, it would probably cost about $1 million. But if you're going to do it with local funds, which have less requirements, you probably do it at half the cost. So that's part of the strategy that happens with local governments as they think about approaching the TPO for some of these funds. There has to be a right level of project size to really make that commitment to federalize it. We'll not get into the weeds on this, but in case someone's interested, at some point, this just shows the different funding pots, but really rule of thumb, $25 million a year, very flexible funding. Flexible meaning its eligibilities. It can be for bike ped facilities, transit, widenings, intersection improvements, technology upgrades. So as long as it has a transportation capital purchase, it is eligible. So now that I've kind of gotten through some of the background, I wanted to really talk about what our current process is. And I want to do that through this illustration. So what is this crazy box with lots of colors? This is a description of the priority list that I brought to you earlier this year. So each box corresponds to a project. So last year there were 72 projects on our priority list. The colors correspond to the different program areas. So you can see here priorities 2 through 9 are purplish. So they're part of our Smart Cities program. Anything having to do with transportation technology, signal upgrades, intersection improvements. We put them in these buckets for simplicity to sort of categorize projects. And one of the business rules are policy decisions that have been made is we very literally take a categorical approach and say, okay, smart cities is our top priority. So any project that's submitted, that's going straight to the top. Followed by state of good repair. So think maintaining the current assets that we have, buses, resurfacings, those sorts of things. In orange are our Vision Zero, our traditional safety projects. And blue are our real choices when not driving. That's really just code for trails and local bus service. And then finally in green are our major projects. The next important thing about digesting this is the ones that are bolded were actually funded. So you may take a look at this and you're like, hey, what's going on here? Why are we not funding, our top priorities 2 through 8? And then 15 through 28, there's a lot of gaps in this. And that's for a lot of different reasons. One reason is that maybe a project isn't ready. Or another reason could be this project is on the list not to compete for that $25 million, but just to show community support that it's on this list, it's been vetted, and there is community and generally political support for it. So looking at this, there were about 8 projects that were funded in each jurisdiction, all different project types. I think one piece of feedback I heard from this committee is we want to move our fixed guideway transit projects up to the top. Why is streetcar extension priority number 44? This should be much higher. And the reason it's categorized as a major project, and we've kind of had this policy rule that they're at the bottom, is because those projects are much, much more expensive than your smaller scale projects, right? And we have some recent history to learn from that. So back in like the 2010s, all of the MPO funds were put on the Bruce B. Down widening. So that's, an arterial in New Tampa, and that was multiple years of funding going to just one project. So philosophically, that's another reason that's kind of led us to our current process where we're focusing on smaller scale projects. So there are some pros and there are some cons to doing it this way. So pros is it's very flexible, both for our local government partners and for the TPO as policy directions change, as priorities of projects change. We're really just limited to these buckets, right? These investment categories, smart cities, real choices, so on and so forth. Additionally, DOT, who actually puts the money on the projects or programs it, there's some programming efficiency that comes with having one list. Although many MPOs across the state have multiple lists. So, for example, they might have a bike ped priority list and an ITS priority list. And DOT will often say, well, then how do we know what your real number 1 is if you have multiple lists? Some of the cons is it can be a little bit confusing once you see this list and you try to tie it together in the tip. Okay, what was funded? What are we really achieving? Also, in the way that we're actually evaluating these projects is, again, very kind of simplistic, or we put it in a bucket. So projects that might have multiple components, right? Say it's a true complete street project where there is going to be a sidewalk plus a resurfacing plus like some transit amenities. That could fall into 3 different categories, and it can make it really difficult for those multifaceted projects to compete well because they don't fit neatly within one box. And then finally, one thing we're really kind of doing some soul searching on is the way we're actually scoring projects. There's different criteria with each category. And again, there's a disincentive for those projects that are multifaceted to perform the best and get to the top of their respective category. So I mentioned we did some outreach with our partners, and I'll just present to you a couple things that came up that dealt with the process, the methodology, meaning how we're actually evaluating projects, and then finally communication. So one sort of pain point that was discussed is that Often some of these projects aren't really ready for the priority list, but they're still on there. Whether that's because they are waiting, maybe they're finishing up design and they're not ready to move forward to construction, but they stay on that list. It's also possible that a project on there really doesn't want federal funds, but they just want to be on there for that community support. But then it kind of clouds the list, and then the ultimate outcome sometimes is that projects get skipped and it might be confusing for people. So one opportunity we're considering is having a really descriptive annual status update for each project, and then possibly even like moving projects that aren't competing for funds still on the list, but maybe towards the bottom so that it doesn't cloud those projects that are really ready to compete for that 25 million. So this is just a quick example to help illustrate that. So if we had priority projects 1 through 5. 1, we got funded because it was ready to go, but 2 through 4, something came up, they had to go and go back to their plans and make some tweaks. So there are many, many reasons why that situation happens, and it does regularly. Another aspect that we're looking at is the methodology. I sort of walked you through that, where we get an application for a project, we put it in one of those buckets, and then we have those business rules of smart cities is first, and good repair, vision zero, so on and so forth. And each of them have their own scoring criteria. And some of the feedback we received about that is, again, if they're only in one program, maybe that's a disincentive to them because the outcomes could be better for safety, or maybe the project had a intersection improvement that would have really made it complete well in smart cities. And it's really difficult sometimes to put a multifaceted project into one box. So some things that we're thinking about, I would love your input on, is, does it make sense to maybe, instead of have this, very specific criteria to a program category, maybe instead we should have like universal scoring criteria so we can more equitably evaluate those projects that have different components that are part smart cities, part vision zero.
Did you say there was a difference between how dark the color is?
Yes, that was what was funded, if it was dark. Another way to kind of slice and dice this again is to consider having multiple priority lists rather than just one giant list of projects. And then finally, with communication, currently we meet regularly with our operating partners. There's a lot of staff turnover, so this is already a complex process, right? So just bringing people back up to speed, understanding what the TPO is and what it means to federalize projects. I think we could do a better job as TPO staff helping our local governments and operators with tips, targets, to help them really understand how this sausage is made, because it is very complex at times. So I have some discussion questions, but I'm here really to ask you a few pointed questions. Then again, we're in a tight time frame. We're going to take your feedback and a few other committees, bring something to the board in January, because we want to use that input to bring you a list that everybody can get behind later this spring. But it will also be tied with long-term recommendations, because there's some things that we can do soon, and there's things that are really valid, but it might take us some more time to really workshop. So I had a couple specific questions that I would love your input on, as well as anything else that you might have questions or direction. But do you think like project readiness should be an evaluation criteria? Should we be really looking at, does this project already have a planning effort on file? Are there local funds committed to it? Is there like a resolution of support from that member government that really kind of puts more oomph behind each project and incorporate that in our rankings? What do you think about the proposal to have universal scoring criteria for all projects rather than individual criteria based on that program category? Should we have multiple priority lists? And then finally, many of the projects on that list aren't really competing for funding. So does it make sense to put them near the bottom or put them somewhere else, acknowledge them as a priority, but maybe not cloud the existing list. So I knew I threw a lot at you. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I would also really love to hear your thoughts on these policies.
Well, thank you for coming back. I was one of the people who had a lot of questions when you presented this last time. And it was, like you said, it's we didn't know how the sausage was made, and you come to us with the list and say, please approve this. And we all, trust the work that staff does. But what's our role in this? And so I appreciate you been having this discussion. But before I have some thoughts, but I wanted to hear from us first and people. Cheers.
I got thoughts. Sorry.
Good.
Concerning project readiness, having or prioritizing plans that are shovel ready or that are plans on the shelf, I would imagine would take priority. The work's already been done. There may be some updates that may need to be done to each of the plans, but I think that would be a lot. So even though it may not be the most important thing in the community, the timing of it can go quicker to get it through the process and the funding. Universal versus compartmentalizing each of it. One's like a rational approach and one's an incremental approach. So I would go with the incremental approach because rational approach may not, funding wise, you may get little wins to get to the larger win. So I kind of like it broken up.
Okay, sorry, I've got 2 small children and they were up all night. So is the rational the universal?
The rationals are universal. That's like planning everything out and having the fully funding, and taking the full amount, full beast, I guess of it. So.
I just wanted to say, in dealing with project readiness, I would add the caveat that are there funds that are going to expire? Because if there are funds that are going to expire, we need to move as quickly as we can.
That's an excellent point, and thankfully not something we really have to be concerned with here because DOT actually puts the funds on the projects and they're constantly watching that clock. And if anything even gets close to expiring, they're working their magic behind the scenes. So it's a really important point, but not something that we have to consider.
Plus you can leverage under incremental. You could say, okay, we're receiving funding for the iPad portion of this. We've already got some funding going into it. Let's bring in safety or let's bring in congestion or whatever.
I responded. I think that's such an important point, like building partnerships where we can, right? Like again, $25 million in the scheme of things, not a lot, but if we can build partnerships and say, okay, let's align our work programs. And this project's really important. Maybe DOT can focus on the roadway, but TPO can throw in money for this. So,
Chris?
I've got a million questions about this process because I'm one of the people who has to send you applications. But I guess specific to like what this committee could contribute to this process. I mean, and the overall process is interesting too, but like theoretically what happened last year was there was some alarm by one of our members that everything was down in the 40s, right? Because everything that was Vision Zero or Real Choices was way down the list because of that bucket sorting. And then there was a motion, well, we should make a motion to take this one, the hard project, and move it up the list. Well, then we found out, well, the most we could ask to move it up the list is to the front of, I guess, the Real Choices bucket. And that still got it from 44 to 42 or something like that, which is not very satisfying as a move. And also, I personally doubted the efficacy of it. And then even seeing all kind of the leapfrogging that goes on in the list, it's just still baffling to me. There's stuff that just kind of sits there it's a really high number that doesn't get funded, so I guess it stays there for next year. You'll have a high number until, it's really ready to go to get that big drop of construction money or whatever. It almost seems like there should be like an advance list of things that are, things that can't disappear, but, are not ready, so that we know, like, and I don't know, maybe that makes sense to DOT when they look at it and they're putting money on it, but it's really hard to do. But going back to my thing, I think if this committee wants to be involved, it would be helpful, and I know this all comes at the same time and it's being sorted at the same time, for us to maybe get a look at, okay, here are the projects that have come forward in the real choices list, because that's the one that really, that has the bike ped specific funding in it. And here's our, and you can show your preliminary scoring results of that, and then you comment on like, okay, within this category, does this make sense? Or do you think we're overlooking something? Because I think asking us to approve the whole list almost is putting us out of our depth in some ways. And almost it's just like overwhelming. And then it's like, well, we think bike ped should be the first, no matter what. And it doesn't matter what the project was, but we could actually kind of weigh in or at least sign off on how those bike ped projects got sorted with some knowledge, because we probably can visualize the project better and compare the, our sense of the need. Talk about kind of three different things at once, but I think that, I know that's another presentation that you got a different point in the process, which, I'm not trying to create more work for you, but I think it would be more the input of this committee would be more satisfying and more valuable to kind of comment on the ranking within the real choices category rather than, at some interim point, rather than just being asked to sign off on the whole list at the end. Just, well, relatively speaking, for lots of reasons, bike ped is still a low priority overall, and doesn't that suck again? And then we kind of want to make some highly symbolic motion to express our displeasure, which probably doesn't get us anywhere.
Excellent point.
That's my thought on that study.
Okay, yeah, but, thank you, Chris. We'll push.
But no, I'll stop.
I have stuff I don't want to hear.
I had heard very different presentations. I understand what you're saying. I'm thinking, one of your original questions was like, how does this work? And I'm thinking, I started out decades ago as a neighborhood, and we would fight for our. And you show that, I would be so frustrated. It's so black boxy and doesn't make sense. And I would hesitate even now as a professional planner, having to go in front of a neighborhood, explain why this is being done and that. Other than that thought, that's all the money that was the arbitrary set of rules that we're trying to gain things. Maybe it's just the way it's presented. Might be that's just the game we have to play. But it's communicated graphically. There's probably somebody out there speaking out. The entire planet. Oh. But yeah, I just found it really. Might have amazing. I'm glad you know over it's always on top of all that stuff. It just seems like it'd be really confusing.
Is there a specific, I know it's all confusing, but is there something specific that you think me and my team can go back and?
There's some graphic way to try to show when you have the projects, they probably spend there. They get some of those codes.
Yeah. Okay, so it's that area, but like how?
It's almost like when you dig into something. Or it's just a good start. Oh, yeah, I can see it. I don't know. I just have the question. I just was just a comment.
I gotta say, I love this graphic because it is crystal clear. It makes crystal clear what's really like dissatisfactory. It explains the current process really, really well. It's like, oh, that's what happens. But it also illustrates there's a lot of reasons why, I was trying to understand previous explanations of it. It just doesn't made sense. I'm like, okay, this shows me exactly what happens. But I still have questions about why we do it this way, but I think this, I'm a big fan of this graphic, because I think it describes the current process pretty clearly, pretty.
I think a really critical point you brought up was when things aren't ready. I have that in my own life, you know, cleaning out the garage versus building a planter, and my wife says, why are you? You know, and you're like, because I don't have enough time to do this, and I don't know, I didn't buy this, and this is what I got 2 hours left, and this is what I'm doing, and I wasn't ready. You know,
Yeah,
so
like items 2 through 8 on that list are so clear, like. Why would we even publish a list
Yeah.
to say those are the most important things, but there's some reason, I mean. Did DOT determine there was a reason why, or we kind of knew going into it that there was probably a reason why those wouldn't get funded? And if that's the case, then like maybe, you know, there should be, I mean, and it seemed like you were describing once something gets on this list, even if it gets in for a very preliminary thing, it's gonna stay on this list until it's done. But there may be time gaps between those phases where it's just hanging out on the list.
Mhm.
And I understand that, and, you know, I think Sally kind of spoke to the strength of that, that we need to just keep the stuff moving along, and DOT wants to make sure stuff doesn't expire and all that stuff. But also, but year to year, if you don't know those projects like the back of your hand, you're gonna be like, okay, so what's so great about all those loser projects 2 through 8 that don't get any funding, yet they're, you know, they're, for all intents and purposes, when we roll out the list, we're telling you these are the most important things, and we should be excited that they're moving along. You know,
And maybe one of the things, maybe this list is too big, like maybe it's too much, maybe there's too many projects that really shouldn't be on here. Maybe we could also work on our communication strategy around this as well, so I've been taking notes.
So you,
I just had one thing, I think it plays off of this conversation. I really liked how it was phrased as like symbolic. For maybe some context for those folks who, maybe didn't pick up on the nuance of that. So sometimes for certain projects to be considered for other lists, or for example, like capital improvements, in specific counties, for the city, or for other types of funding, other grants that aren't, you know, related to Hillsborough County necessarily. People like to see that that these projects are on those lists, or a list such as this. It gives it more backing. So, yes, I understand that might not actually be asking from the TPO, but there's another angle to why that project specifically is on the list. And again, maybe the list is too big, and maybe that needs to be factored in to how those metrics work, something with the criteria. I don't have all the answers, but I just wanted to kind of provide a little bit of that context. Because even for somebody that does land use, I'm a land use planner by trade. A lot of the times when we want a project that has to do with the actual land, something being used for a specific development, if the road that development is being built on is on a list, or it's shown to be on one of these lists where improvements are going to be made, there's a higher chance that development will go through. So it's that game that we play with land use and transportation, which concerns that you're going to get. So that's one of the reasons why. So I'm trying to demystify some of the list building here. I think that's pretty much it. But yeah, I agree that maybe there needs to be some distinguishing factor with that. It might even be small descriptions of each project, almost like infographics, back to the how to communicate stuff. That's just a suggestion.
great. Thanks, Sophia. That was helpful. So, yeah, I want to make sure, Elizabeth, you're getting what you wanted out of this.
Sure.
I was going to, Chris put it better than me, that how can we contribute? We're obviously not going to be able to Vision Zero above ITS. And so we can't control that. We don't need to depend to. So we can help either prioritize projects, which I don't know that we should, this group should be the authority on that, but maybe we have feedback on the metrics that you use to prioritize projects, things like that, right? And I think that if you're gonna, and I think this committee does want to be involved as a team, but we should limit it to things that we have probably some meaningful. So I do like the idea of, now, I do understand the need a master list and not have separate lists, but maybe what you bring to this group is separate lists. And maybe some of them are ITS, like this is an opportunity, because some of these ITS projects might include signalized intersections, which we support, right? So, but yeah, I do want to, in the interest of time, want to make sure that has this been helpful? Are you getting the feedback you're looking for?
Absolutely, very, very helpful. I have another question,
Yep.
but I know I'll be respectful of time, so Chair, whatever you would.
Yeah, if there's no other feedback, Brendan, you know.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I have a love-hate relationship with the difference between universal scoring criteria, because I do think that, as you said, some projects could check multiple boxes, but they're presented as one thing, and I think the challenge would be if you were to go to the universal scoring with the weighted based on the LRTP priorities, is how you present that then to make it more understand, like, this is why, and then, like, it's got these components, but it has more of this component, that's why it's this position on the list.
Right. So you had another.
I did. So just while I'm here, I'll just hook under the hood a little bit on hide beside. This is the evaluation criteria that we use right now, and this could be its own presentation, but really just focusing in on real choices when not driving, because that's where most of our trail projects sit. Our main criteria that we're using is population density, right? Because we want to get these projects built so we can serve the population today. It's a little bit different for major projects where we do 2050 job and employment density. But if we were to crack open this evaluation criteria, what are some other things that you would want us to consider when we are ranking trail projects? Connectivity, other thoughts?
Safety. It's a big one. I'd also say much impact the project has on the community. For example, with the sidewalk stoppers, I have worked with the sidewalks. I am a member of the sidewalk stoppers, but we've done a lot of impactful urbanism type projects, and they're really low cost, but they have a huge impact. They're quick, they're easy, and you can really, get impact from these projects. So I don't know, it's just, I would say safety for me is the biggest.
I have to echo that because, like, real choices when not driving, vision zero is important fatal and serious injuries, but the majority of the fatal and serious injuries that we have are bike head, so that ties into the real choices of not driving. So those two have to go.
And especially with people, vulnerable people, children, elderly, people who don't have vehicles.
Well, you've been really generous with your time. Unfortunately, I won't be able to come back to you before the board because they meet January 10th. So it's before your next meeting, but I'll probably send a draft email to Ben to circulate you so you all know just kind of where this all fell out. But again, unless there are other comments, I really appreciate your thoughtful input.
Yep, thank you for, I think this is, as we talked about last time, getting it to help us even partly just understand how these lists are prioritized, but and then, yeah, when you do ask us for feedback, kind of try and contain it to like head areas. Because I understand that you have to make compromises, the board has to make compromises. But yeah, we want to contribute. So thanks for asking for. Okay. Okay. So next is Block Box presentation with Dr. Wong. Is he online or? Who's on next? Okay. So we will go to our last steps report, which is multimodal competition. Yeah.
Okay, good to be back. Ben Gordon, yeah, staff, you all remember me. This is just going to be a really quick item. So as most of you probably know, the TPO conducts just regular vehicular traffic counts. The most recent vehicle counts were back in spring of 2024. And we also, back in late 2023, launched our first set of multimodal traffic counts using cameras. That was at 80 locations. You all helped recommend and target where we recorded those volumes. It was of pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles, each in just little 24-hour time windows with those cameras. We're working on a new round of counts at this point. We're hoping for it to be more integrated this time around, with just one consultant handling all of the counts, getting them all up on our online database, which I'll share in a moment. But I've left you all with a map that's just the 2024 locations, the vehicle counts. And we don't seem to have those integrated into our web map just yet, which I thought we had them. But if any of you have locations that you think are particularly important that we need to hit this time around, mark them out, just write down the spot, and we just need all the feedback we can get.
So this map is,
This is multimodal. The one up there, the one you're holding is the 2024 vehicular.
okay, so that's passed.
Yeah, so the one on the screen is,
Repeated.
yeah, so both of those maps are passed, yeah. The physical one is the latest vehicular counts, and then what I have up now is bicyclists, pedestrians, and vehicles. That's the multimodal one from 2023.
So these sensors count all three. They count vehicles, they count pedestrians, cyclists.
With this web map right here, yeah, these are just integrated, yeah, vehicles, bicyclists, pedestrians up here.
So you're asking for locations along trails?
Trails, just roadways, intersections in particular.
Or bike or ped, right?
This is going to be like multimodal, so I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do the bike ped one at every single location. Like at some locations, we might only be able to do 2 counting within the budget. But from you all, we would definitely want advice on getting those, just all 3, bicyclist, pedestrian, and vehicle.
Are these detectors portable, like they do?
Yeah,
They them every.
They're cameras. You work with consultants who deploy them. They're usually just attached to traffic signs, from what I remember, the poles. And in the past,
Okay, 72 hours. Data point.
So I assume this is used like, I think there's always questions about, we need more east-west corridors, and should we do it on this street or that street, right?
yeah.
And this is the kind of stuff, at least would tell us.
So
what facilities, as they are today, people are comfortable with, right?
when are you seeking to finalize your list for the next round?
I don't think we've set a deadline yet. We're still scoping consultants, so.
Is there any locations that you'd like to prioritize around schools or YMCA's?
Schools, we're definitely planning to prioritize. I hadn't heard about other specific community locations off the top of my head, but we definitely want to do that. And there's a value to identifying areas that have high volumes of bicyclists and pedestrians that are lacking important safety infrastructure as well, because that helps to make the case for investment in improvements. But yeah, I'll keep all of you posted on this. It's still a little up in the air.
So the last time you did it, you had 80 multimodal locations.
Yes, yeah.
You think you might get about that this time too?
I think we're hoping for more, but I still just,
And it says here that those are 24-hour counts of multimodal type.
yeah.
Sometimes the vehicular counts are 48-hour counts.
Is there just I don't remember this presentation, are you wanting, are you soliciting feedback from people?
Honestly-
Outside of the meeting?
Honestly, I'll send out further things as well. If anyone has like locations noted down there or whatever, I'll be sure to select them. But yeah, just mostly just wanted to get a start, put it on the radar.
Do you know what's the cycle on? Do these annually?
I don't think we have a single set cycle, but I could be confused on that.
But then it's just wonder if there's benefit in repeating, you know, previous year locations, if there are known hotspots, we'll spread them out, you know, to new
Yeah.
locations. I think it would be helpful if there was a list of the previous locations for the multimodal ones.
Yeah,
Or, you know, a version of that map we could kind of really. Yes,
so the count report is on this page as well, just under accounts, and it does have an itemized list.
and that's the attachment for the link that's in the agenda.
Yeah, to this page, and then you can go to that report.
Okay, so that last bunch was done in 2020.
That's right.
So we get around to doing it in 2026, so we're 2.5 years later.
One thing, so I mentioned previously that ARD is conducting a bus stop inventory right now, with all of our, existing bus stops. To have that in December. One of the things that we've been checking at the bus at each bus stop is lighting conditions and if there's a crosswalk nearby. And, we're hoping that once all that data is collected, that we'll have a database of that information, like if we're gonna look specifically at, stops that have word crossing or like crosswalks not nearby, and then also looking at, where lighting conditions are bad too. And hopefully, we can share that with you all as well and, kind of back that in with, areas where there's, having pedestrian activity as well for prioritizing too. Just one example that was, the Route 15 doing the inventory. That's long Columbus Drive, and I was doing a lot of testing movements, being going from one stop to the other, getting the information. And during rush hour, I don't know, going kind of crazy trying to cross the street because there's not a lot of new crosswalks in Columbus, especially like west of the bridge. And yeah, so I think just kind of trying to identify those locations because I think, as far as a bus rider, when they, let's say they live somewhere and, they get on the bus stop one way and then they take it, home and get off the other way. And they're going to have to, cross the street at some point. So I think just looking at, where there's high ridership on top of or crossing connections. We also like to say, like for every transit rider, before they become the transit rider, they are a biker, they are a pedestrian, they have to walk to the bus stop, in some way. So I think just factoring that into any improvements would also be good.
All right, any other feedback? Okay, thanks, man. Okay, is there any other old business or new business? I just have one comment. So we skipped December, goes the holidays, we'll be back in January. One of the things to do at the beginning of the year is all we are missing a vice chair because Tim stepped in. I haven't talked to John. Hopefully he's willing to still serve as long as in some capacity. I am as well, but let us know if anyone is either interested or maybe just willing to to serve. It's good to think about that before we get to the meeting in January. And so if you have any questions, let us know. Or if we're interested, let us know. And we'll have that. But yeah, we will do the nominations of elections. And right, these both happen on the same week. We don't do nominations for this. Yes, okay. Otherwise, we would have offices in April. Okay, all right. Well, with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thanks. Thank you.
And actually,
It does make sense, you say you have this